The city of Krill'Tok shimmered, a colossal structure of bioluminescent coral and reinforced chitin nestled deep within the ocean of Xylos. Home to the Krill'Tok, a species renowned throughout the Andromeda galaxy for their unwavering adherence to protocol and their formidable military might. Everything here, from the synchronized pulsing of the city's lights to the precisely ordered formations of patrol drones, spoke of absolute control. Commander Glar'Gath, a veteran of countless simulated war games, stood rigid on the command deck of the flagship, the tidal wave. His multifaceted eyes, usually cold and calculating, flickered with an almost imperceptible anxiety. His carapace, normally a polished obsidian, seemed to darken in the low light. The Krill'Tok were not easily rattled. Their society was built on predictability, on the unwavering execution of established procedures. Yet today, the unthinkable loomed. An anomaly, a chaotic ripple in spacetime, threatened to unravel the very fabric of their reality. Their sensors, normally so precise, sputtered with conflicting data. The readings indicated a localized temporal distortion, a tear in the universe itself heading directly towards Xylos. The predicted impact time? A mere 10 minutes. Every Krill'Tok on the command deck moved with practiced efficiency, their multi-jointed limbs clicking against the metal floor. Status reports flashed across holographic displays, each confirming the grim prognosis. The temporal barrier, their last line of defense, was calibrated, energized, and utterly insufficient. Glar'Gath tightened his grip on his ceremonial trident. He had faced down rogue asteroids, quelled insurrections, and navigated treacherous political waters. But this was different. This was an enemy they could not comprehend, a threat they could not fight. This was the end of everything. Or so he thought. Then, amidst the mounting tension, a blip appeared on the long-range scanners. Not the anomaly. Something else. Something decidedly underwhelming. It was a spacecraft, if you could call it that. More like a cobbled-together collection of spare parts held together by sheer optimism and duct tape. The Krill'Tok, masters of advanced engineering, stared in bewildered silence. And from this space jalopy, emerged Dave. Dave, a human, blinked in the harsh glare of the Krill'Tok docking bay lights. He scratched his head, his expression somewhere between mild confusion and profound boredom. He was wearing a t-shirt that read, "I need more space," and cargo shorts. Glar'Gath, struggling to reconcile this human with the apocalyptic threat they faced, addressed him through a translator drone. "Human, identify yourself and state your purpose. You have trespassed into Krill'Tok space." Dave yawned. "Name's Dave. And, purpose? I was kinda hoping someone could point me to the nearest coffee shop. This bucket of bolts ran out of fuel and I've been drinking recycled water for 3 days. It tastes suspiciously like fish." The Krill'Tok exchanged incredulous glances. Fish? Fuel? This was not the response they had anticipated from a potential invader. Glar'Gath, attempting to regain control of the situation, pressed on. "You are being detained on suspicion of espionage and general weirdness." Dave shrugged. "Espionage? Look, pal, I can barely operate my own toaster, let alone infiltrate your underwater disco ball. And weird? Have you seen what you guys are wearing? All that shiny armor? Little excessive, isn't it?" His gaze swept over the assembled Krill'Tok, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "Though I gotta say, that trident is kinda cool." The cultural chasm was widening by the second. The Krill'Tok, with their rigid protocols and unwavering seriousness, were utterly baffled by Dave's casual demeanor and sarcastic remarks. Was this some sort of elaborate ruse? A psychological warfare tactic they hadn't encountered before? Glar'Gath couldn't be sure, but he knew one thing. This human was definitely different. And difference in the Krill'Tok world was usually a prelude to disaster. The room fell silent as Glar'Gath finally spoke, his voice resonating with the weight of their impending doom. "Human, we face a crisis of unimaginable proportions, a cosmic anomaly, a tear in the very fabric of space-time. is approaching our world. In 10 minutes, it will consume us all. Dave blinked. 10 minutes? Seriously? That's like barely enough time to microwave a burrito. He glanced around the control room, taking in the flashing lights and complex machinery with a look of mild interest. So what's the plan? Big speeches? Heroic last stands? 'Cause honestly, I'm more of a find a comfy chair and wait for it all to blow over kind of guy. Glar'Gath struggled to maintain his composure. This human was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Either way, he was their only hope. We possess a device, he said, gesturing to a large humming machine in the center of the room. A temporal barrier stabilizer. It can theoretically mitigate the effects of the anomaly, but it requires precise operation. He turned to Dave, his expression grim. You, human, will hold the line. You will operate the stabilizer and protect our world. Dave raised an eyebrow. Me? But I just got here. And I'm pretty sure the last time I operated anything more complicated than a TV remote, I accidentally erased my neighbor's wedding video. He paused, considering the situation. All right, I'll bite. But on one condition. Glar'Gath narrowed his eyes. Condition? You are in no position to make demands. Dave shrugged. Hey, I'm risking my neck here, literally. So here's the deal. I help you save your underwater kingdom, and in return, you get me a decent cup of coffee. Not that recycled fish water you guys are so fond of. I'm talking real coffee, dark roast. Maybe a little cream if you're feeling generous. The Krill'Tok officers exchanged bewildered glances. Coffee? At a time like this? Glar'Gath, however, saw a flicker of something in Dave's eyes. Perhaps this strange human wasn't as clueless as he seemed. Very well, he conceded. Coffee it is. But if you fail us, human, your punishment will be severe. Dave grinned. Deal. Now show me this temporal barrier stabilizer thingy, and maybe point me to the bathroom first. This recycled water is starting to take its toll. Dave approached. The temporal barrier. Stabilizer with a nonchalant air, whistling a tuneless melody. The Krill'Tok officers recoiled as if he were about to defile a sacred altar. He circled the machine, tapping panels and peering into its intricate workings with a distinctly unprofessional curiosity. So, Dave began, this thingamajigger is supposed to stop a cosmic whoopsie-doo? He scratched his head, pulling a small multi-tool from his pocket. Looks kinda like my Aunt Mildred's old washing machine, but with more blinky lights. Glar'Gath watched with growing apprehension as Dave began tinkering. He loosened screws, disconnected wires, and even started rewiring components with what appeared to be complete disregard for the machine's intended function. Human, what do you think you are doing? That device is calibrated to the quantum level. Dave glanced up, a wrench in his hand. Relax, buddy. Just adding a little Earth ingenuity. You know, a bit of that good old number 8 wire magic. He gestured vaguely. Besides, your instructions were a bit vague. Something about stabilizing the temporal what's-it. I figure a little hot wiring never hurt anyone. The other Krill'Tok began to murmur amongst themselves, their clicking and gurgling escalating into a chorus of worried disapproval. Glar'Gath tried to maintain a semblance of control, but even he was starting to doubt the wisdom of entrusting their fate to this human. Dave, oblivious to the rising tension, continued his modifications. He pulled out a roll of duct tape and began securing a loose wire. See, good as new, or, at least good enough to hold off a cosmic thing. He grinned, flashing a thumbs up. Glar'Gath felt a knot of anxiety tighten in his stomach. He couldn't shake the feeling that Dave wasn't just ignorant, but actively sabotaging their efforts. Could this be a deliberate act of aggression? Was this human a spy, sent to ensure their destruction? The thought gnawed at him, even as a strange, unsettling curiosity began to take root. What exactly was Dave hoping to achieve with these bizarre alterations? The aquatic city trembled as the cosmic anomaly drew closer, its ominous energy crackling through the water. Alarms blared, their shrill cries echoing through the once orderly corridors. Panic began to spread among the Krill'Tok. their rigid formations dissolving into disorganized swarms. At the heart of the chaos, Dave continued his work on the temporal barrier stabilizer, seemingly oblivious to the impending doom. Smoke now billowed from the device, accompanied by strange sputtering noises. Wires sparked and flickered, casting an eerie glow on Dave's face as he hummed along to some unheard melody. Glar'Gath watched in horror as the machine sputtered and died, plunging the chamber into near darkness. The temporal barrier stabilizer, their last line of defense, was now nothing more than a smoking heap of twisted metal and melted circuits. "Human, what have you done?" he bellowed, his voice echoing through the chamber. Dave looked up, a sheepish grin on his face. Oh, did I break it? My bad. I thought I had it, but maybe I mixed up the blue wire with the other blue wire." He shrugged. "Don't worry, I'm sure it's an easy fix." The Krill'Tok guards surged forward, their energy, weapons charged and ready. "Sabotage!" one of them shrieked. "He's one of them! He's here to destroy us!" The accusations mounted, fueled by fear and desperation. Glar'Gath raised his hand, silencing the crowd with a sharp gesture. He stared at Dave, his multifaceted eyes narrowed with suspicion. He saw no fear in the human's eyes, only a strange mix of amusement and mild confusion. Was this all an act? Was Dave truly a saboteur or simply a clueless idiot? Glar'Gath hesitated, his mandibles clicking nervously. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, that there was more to this situation than met the eye. He signaled the guards to hold their fire for now. The anomaly was almost upon them. Glar'Gath could feel its presence, a cosmic weight pressing down on the city. He drew his energy pistol, the cool metal a small comfort against the rising panic. "Human," he growled, "prepare to face the consequences of your treachery." Dave, however, remained unfazed. He reached into a small container attached to the temporal barrier stabilizer and pulled out a handful of fluffy white kernels. "Consequences? Relax, buddy. Just gotta wait for the timer." He tossed the kernels into his mouth, chewing thoughtfully. Needs more salt." Glar'Gath was beyond reason. "What is the meaning of this charade? There are mere seconds left. Explain yourself or face immediate." "Huh?" He paused, his numerous eyes widening slightly. "Are you eating?" Dave swallowed. "Popcorn. You want some? It's ready." He gestured to the smoking machine. "See that temporal barrier stabilizer? Turns out it's just a fancy microwave." He grinned. A really, really fancy one. A stunned silence fell over the chamber. The Krill'Tok guards lowered their weapons, their faces a mixture of disbelief and utter confusion. Glar'Gath stared at Dave, then at the smoking machine, then back at Dave. "Microwave? What in the abyss are you talking about?" Dave sighed. "Look, I figured it out when I saw the radiation emission charts. The frequency, the power output. It all pointed to a standard Earth microwave, just, Krill'Tok-sized. And way over-engineered." He pointed to the approaching anomaly, which was now clearly visible through the viewport, a swirling mass of green and brown particles. "That cosmic anomaly?" Dave continued, popping another handful of popcorn into his mouth. "Just a buildup of space algae. Happens all the time back home. Nasty stuff, clogs up the sensors. A few seconds in the microwave, and poof." As if on cue, the temporal barrier stabilizer beeped loudly. Dave reached in and pulled out a large bag of popcorn. The swirling mass of algae outside the viewport began to dissipate, breaking apart into harmless particles. The city of Krill'Tok was safe. 10 worlds were saved. By popcorn. The Krill'Tok were motionless. The revelation hung in the water, thick and unbelievable. Commander Glar'Gath, the sternest of the stern, the most logical of the logical, felt his mandibles twitch. A microwave, popcorn? It defied all reason, all protocol, everything they held sacred. Then, it started. A ripple of confused noise spread through the chamber like a shoal of startled fish. It began as a low rumble, a hesitant clicking of throat pouches, but quickly, it escalated into something Unexpected. Laughter. The Krill'Tok were laughing. A cacophony of gurgles, clicks, and whistles filled the room, the sound echoing off the crystalline walls. Glar'Gath felt a strange tremor run through his body. He had never heard his people laugh like this, a sound both alien and utterly human. He looked at the dissipating algae, the averted crisis, and the absurdly grinning human holding a bag of popcorn. It was all so ridiculous, so utterly, hilariously ridiculous. A chuckle escaped his own throat pouch, then another, and soon he was swept up in the wave of mirth. Glar'Gath finally understood. The rigid structure of their society, the endless protocols and procedures, had blinded them to the simplest solutions. They had faced a cosmic threat, with advanced technology, and unwavering fear when all they needed was someone to make popcorn. The 10 worlds were never in danger, only in need of a new perspective. Dave predictably took his newfound heroism in stride. He shrugged, accepted a few awkward pats on his slimy back, and mostly just wanted to know where he could find a decent shower. So, about that coffee? He asked, casually munching on the last of his popcorn. But for the Krill'Tok, everything had changed. The laughter, the shared absurdity, had cracked the shell of their rigid conformity. They began to question everything. Protocol revisions were proposed, debated, and in some cases outright ignored. It was anarchy, Krill'Tok style. The first sign of real change came with the introduction of improvisational drill number 7, a mandatory exercise where junior officers were forced to respond to unexpected scenarios with creativity. The results were often disastrous, occasionally hilarious, and always unsettling to the Elder Council. Glar'Gath found himself at the forefront of this cultural revolution. He still clung to structure and logic, but now, a tiny seed of humor had been planted. He even started adding a splash of brightly colored algae to his usually drab uniform, a move that sent ripples of horrified fascination through the ranks. One day, Glar'Gath found Dave sitting on a repurposed algae filtration unit, idly tossing pebbles into a bubbling vent. "Human," he said, his voice still formal but with a newfound lightness. "I wish to express gratitude." He presented Dave with a small, slightly damp bag. Inside were perfectly popped kernels of Krill'Tok, space algae lightly salted with deep-sea minerals. "Popcorn," Glar'Gath stated. "It is acceptable, yes?" Dave grinned, took the bag, and popped a kernel into his mouth. "Acceptable? Commander, this is surprisingly good. You guys might be onto something here." The two unlikely companions sat in silence for a moment, munching on popcorn, watching the bustling city of Krill'Tok slowly, awkwardly, but undeniably, transform. A new era had begun, one kernel at a time. Years later, Dave was no longer just Dave. He was, well, still Dave, but now with a title, the intergalactic chef. Turns out, solving one crisis with popcorn was just the beginning. He traded his unimpressive spacecraft for a slightly less unimpressive but significantly better equipped food truck. It had a state-of-the-art microwave, naturally, and a coffee machine that could brew a decent cup across multiple gravities. He roamed the galaxy responding to distress calls with a bag of kernels and a knowing smirk. A methane-based society on the verge of collapse due to a faulty atmospheric regulator? Popcorn. A silicon-based life form struggling with existential angst? Extra buttery popcorn. He'd pop up, quite literally, in the most unexpected places, offering his services with a shrug and a "relax, I got this." His methods were unorthodox, his recipes questionable, but his results were undeniable. He was hailed as the savior of 10 worlds, a title he found endlessly amusing. "Look," he'd say, leaning against his food truck, "I just make really good popcorn, and sometimes really good coffee. The rest is just gravy." But of course, it was more than just popcorn. It was about perspective, about finding simple solutions to seemingly impossible problems. It was about reminding everyone that sometimes the greatest threats can be solved with a little bit of levity and a well-placed snack. The galaxy, it seemed, had developed quite the craving. So what have we learned from Dave and his intergalactic popcorn escapades? Well, maybe that the universe has a funny way of working. Or that sometimes the most advanced technology is no match for a simple bag of kernels and a decent microwave. The Krill'Tok, with all their rigid protocols and militaristic precision, nearly doomed themselves with overthinking. Dave, on the other hand, saved the day by, well, not thinking too much at all. He saw a problem and he popped it. Literally. It's a reminder that perspective is everything. What seems like a cosmic threat might just be a bad case of space algae buildup. And sometimes the solution isn't some complex equation or a galaxy-spanning fleet, but just a bit of humor and a fresh batch of popcorn. Thanks for joining us on this little adventure. If you enjoyed this tale of intergalactic snacking and accidental heroism, be sure to hit that subscribe button for more stories from the strange and wonderful corners of the universe. And remember, when faced with the impossible, maybe try adding butter. You never know.